Aloha humans! My name is Lorelai, but you can call me Lori, and welcome back to... Maybe I should have done all these settings before I started. To be or not to be! So, let's skip the introduction. We know it. So last time we went through my personal choices for Hamlet Senior. This time, I think we can skip this as well. We are going to be... Hold on, I shouldn't have skipped it. Wait, go back. Hold on. It'd be easier if I just skipped through this stuff. Ophelia! She's an awesome lady in her late 20s with a competent and resourceful demeanor. And I cannot speak well enough to be Ophelia, but we're doing it anyway. She's got a +1 bonus to science, but she's also got a -1 weakness against water, so heads up. Ideally, we won't have to deal with that, so we're gonna play as Ophelia. Right, you're Ophelia. You are a beautiful and independent young woman, and although it makes you roll your eyes when you think about it, you've fallen in love with a prince. Prince Hamlet is funny and charming, and he seems to like you a lot. You try not to get too excited about it, because you're worried you might jinx it, but things really are going great. So we actually did this part a little bit in the Hamlet playthrough. We decided which was the one where we just picked all the skull ones that lasted 3 hours. So we already know what happens if we let Laertes into our room and just weirdly go along with it and all of that. So luckily, I wouldn't pick that even if we hadn't done it already. Only it's been hard doing the long distance thing while you've both been off at university. And while you've loved studying capital S science, and you're sure Hamlet's loved studying capital U undeclared, it hasn't been easy. Now that you're both back together in Denmark for his father's funeral and his mother's second wedding, it's been harder still. Hamlet's really sad, and you can't blame him for that since, you know, his dad died. But you wish there was something you could do to help him. When you last saw him, Hamlet mentioned how the castle seemed cold and drafty, and for some reason it stuck with you. You've been sitting at your desk, trying to think of something you could give him that would help with that. A way of cheering him up a little, remind him he's still got people who care about him. He wears these cloaks all the time, but then he's taking them off in warm rooms and putting them back on in cold ones. If only there was some way you could keep the rooms at a uniform temperature. He wouldn't need to be constantly adjusting his clothes throughout the day. But to do that, you need some way of measuring heat and a way of transporting it through the castle, perhaps through a series of pipes. We may be about to invent air conditioning, guys. Your thoughts are interrupted by a knock at your door. Who is it? You call. It's me, says your brother. Come on, let me in. Okay. Do we let him in, or tell him we're busy? We already know what happens if we let him in, and he's kind of a jerk, so we're gonna tell him we're busy. I'm busy, you shout through the door to Laertes. I'm leaving for France soon, he shouts back. Don't you want to say goodbye? Apparently not, you shout in reply. Whatever, Laertes yells. He storms off, stomping all the way. You sit in silence for a moment. He stomps back. Say bye to Dad for me, okay? He shouts. Okay, I will, you yell through the door. He storms off again. To France, I guess? Brothers, am I right? Return to your work. At your desk, you continue to work on the problem of automatically heating the castle. Hours turn into days, and you're generally left alone by both your family and your boyfriend. Your father ignoring you is no big deal, and while you're a little worried about Hamlet not stopping by more often, he has asked you to leave him alone for a while he mourns, and you're respecting his wishes. But if you're going to be honest with yourself, if you're gonna be honest with yourself, you've also just gotten really absorbed in this problem. You decide to split the problem into sections, delivering heat and knowing when to deliver heat. It would be possible to put servants in every room and have them report when it's too cold, but that's both expensive and unreliable. It depends on the servant, the warmth of their clothes, how much they love to lie to people about what temperature their skin is sensing, and so on. You're wandering the castle grounds when it hits you. You've been thinking about how water expands when it freezes, and how that could be used to tell when it's cold, but it's not much use for temperatures outside the freezing point. Your father Polonius happens to wander by, talking to himself about the evils of drink, and you realize alcohol! The right alcohol would expand linearly with heat, and by putting it in a slender glass vial, you could measure the size of that liquid, which would correspond 1-to-1 with temperature. Everybody following along at home? Put the same markings on each of the glass vials at the same temperatures, and you've got a universal, comparable, or comparable if you prefer, and consistent way of measuring heat. You wouldn't have to rely on a servant's impression. They could just tell you what line the alcohol has reached. You run back to your room and start working on the prototype. Just as you complete it, you hear a knock at your door. "Who is it?" you call. And oh my, who should answer from the other side of the door? Should it be our boyfriend, Hamlet, our father, Polonius, or our best friend? I can't even begin to pronounce that. So seriously, who should answer from the other side of the door? I don't want it to be Polonius. And I don't see why we have control over this at all. Let's go with our best friend, why not? Hamlet is at the door. That's right. Turns out that simply wishing for someone to be at your door doesn't change who's actually there. Okay, guess I should have called that one. I sort of did. You don't control reality with your thoughts, Ophelia. Sheesh. Anyway, Hamlet opens the door and steps into your room. "It's me," he says. You haven't seen each other for a while. It's great to see him. You run up and throw your arms around him and you smooch. It's just like old times. But the moment passes, and when you look at his face, you can see concern written all over it. He's troubled by something. Well, obviously we're going to ask him what's troubling him, not just wait for him to tell us. You ask him what's wrong, and, well, there's no other way to put this, so I'll give it to you straight. Hamlet tells you about a spooky ghost and a plan for murdering his stepfather, Claudius, pretender to the throne. I'll be frank, it sounds crazy. A ghost? Murder? But he's your friend and lover, and you're not going to leave him hanging out to dry. As gently as you can, you tell him you're pretty sure ghosts don't exist, but even if they do, he needs to be certain that the ghost he saw was actually the ghost of his father. What if it was some other ghost trying to mess things up? That seems to give him pause. Hamlet admits he never actually asked the ghost for information only his dad would know. It's possible the ghost could be an imposter. "I'll come with you tonight, sweetie," you say. "We'll go together, and if a ghost shows up, we'll figure out what to do." You're confident no ghost will appear and that this will all just go away. You take his hand and squeeze. Hamlet looks up at you, and you can see his relief. "Okay," he says, smiling. "What now?" Well, obviously the only option is to go see the ghost that evening, and I feel like I may be saying obviously a lot this time. Is that the case? Evening comes, and Hamlet leads you to the spot outside where he first saw the ghost. "We have to wait till around midnight," he says. "I think that's when he normally shows up." To pass the time, you play a storytelling game you enjoy, where you say one word of a story and he says the next word, and neither of you knows where the story will go. What's that called? Handsome Cadaver? I think that's called Handsome Cadaver. "Once," you begin. "Upon," he says. You say. "Time," he says. "There was a beautiful," he says, looking at you. You smile. "Prince," you reply, and he smiles back. "Who wanted to kiss his girlfriend," he says. "That's cheating," you say, and then you're kissing. What now? Make out for a while, or don't make out, and you can't believe you're thinking this, but what if a ghost catches you making out? Okay, real talk, probably the second one in real life, because I'm weirdly paranoid about things like that. Just, not that a ghost would maybe catch me making out with someone, never had that problem, but like, do you ever have like an intrusive thought or just thinking about something really weird and you have that moment where you're like, what if someone is reading your mind right now and can hear the crazy thing you're thinking? And now the crazy thing you're thinking is, oh my gosh, what if someone's reading my mind? And it just kind of spirals into you feeling kind of paranoid about something that would never happen. Yeah, I have that problem. So let's not. You turn your head away after a few smooches. That's enough, you say. We don't want your dad catching us making out. Hamlet grins and pulls you close to him. I think he'd be cool with it, he says. That's a weird thing to say, but you excuse it because you know people can say some really weird things when they're way horny. You kiss some more, but finally push him away for real this time. What makes you think he wants to spend the afterlife watching us make out, you say? Well, it's what I'd want to do. he says with a smile. I mean, if I were me and I was also the ghost, he explains. You're about to reply when you're interrupted by an awkward cough coming from above you. Looking up, you see what for all the world looks like Hamlet's dad, Hamlet Sr., only he's transparent and floating and you can see through his bod. Hey guys, the ghost says. You're too shocked to say anything. Ghosts are real, Ophelia. Surprise! Hamlet looks up at the ghost and waves. Hi, Dad, he says. Do we demand the ghost proves that he's who he claims to be? Or it doesn't matter who he is. The real question is if this ghost is so big into murdering dudes, why doesn't he just murder Claudius himself? Riddle him that. Huh. I feel like the first thing that would occur to me is to demand he proves who he claims to be, but I am very curious about why he doesn't just murder Claudius himself, especially since in our run, that's what we did. But I don't want to maybe accidentally lead it back into what we did yesterday, or the day before, because yesterday was the Minecraft video, so we'll do demand he proves who he is. Excuse me, you say. The ghost pretends not to hear you. Excuse me, Mr. Ghost, you inquire, raising your hand. Sup, says the ghost. How do we know you're really Hamlet Sr., you ask. Oh, says the ghost. Oh, I guess ask me some things only Hamlet's dad would know? You do so. They're pretty boring questions about family junk. You're not missing out on anything by me not including them here. And the ghost answers them perfectly. Better still, he answers them as only Hamlet Sr. could answer them, and even makes a reference to a running joke you two had a few months ago. I can't gobble this, says the ghost, and then the two of you shout, It's too spicy! And then you're laughing like what you just said is the funniest thing ever. I don't get it. I guess you had to be there? That reminds me of a running joke I have with my mom, where one of us will go, Billy! And the other one will go, I can't stand him. Which is just a collection of movie references that we watched, one right after the other. Anyway, this is totally the ghost of Hamlet's dad. Identity confirmed. Let's talk about the murder. You go over the basics of the murder plot with the ghost and Hamlet, and, surprise, you see some flaws in it that Hamlet somehow missed. So, Hamlet is supposed to murder Claudius, you say. Yes, Hamlet and the ghost reply in unison. Then they notice they replied in unison and fist bump each other. Well, the ghost's fist goes through Hamlet's fist and stops a little inside it, but you can see what they were going for. And then Claudius will be dead and Hamlet will be king, you say. Yes, Hamlet and the ghost reply in unison again. And then they fist bump each other again, and it's even more off this time. They're not even aligned horizontally with each other. Come on, guys. So, what's to prevent Claudius from becoming a ghost and seeking his own revenge, you say, raising one eyebrow. Says the ghost. In fact, can ghosts kill each other? Because then the best case for us is that one of you ghosts kills the other and then considers himself revenged. Worst case is that you can't kill each other, but instead exist as ghosts forever, which means that the two of you, each with an endless list of sins from long before anyone left alive was born, will continue to meddle in the living world, revenging yourself against each other back and forth for millennia to come. Oh, I think, the ghost begins, then coughs. No, yeah, I think you only become a ghost under certain circumstances. Like being murdered when you still have things you want to complete on this mortal plane, you ask? Oh, right, that'd apply to Claudius too, the ghost says. Huh. What now? Continue talking the ghost out of murder, or make a counter-argument for murder being a good idea? I don't think it would be a good idea to condone murder in pretty much any situation. So let's continue talking the ghost out of murder. Even if we take all the ghost creation issues out of the equation, you go on, there's still the matter of revenge on its own, not being an ethical act. Not to mention the complicated issues surrounding vigilante capital punishment, the ghost says. Exactly. I'm sorry, Ghost King Hamlet, but I don't think this is a super rad idea, you say. Prince Hamlet nods in agreement, because Prince Hamlet is incredibly wishy-washy. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, do what you can to punish him for my murder, though. Cool? The ghost says. You agree to work to uncover proof of the murder, and then work within the legal system to achieve a fair punishment for Claudius. Sounds reasonable, says the ghost. Alright, I guess I'm out. Thanks for the talk. I found it really useful. You and Hamlet do some legwork and track down where Claudius got the poison. The poison monger identifies Claudius in a lineup. Even though he's the king, Claudius is not above the law, and the case goes to court. The prosecution has no witnesses to the actual murder, but means, motive, and opportunity, and tons of circumstantial evidence. Claudius is found guilty of regicide and sentenced to 30 years in prison. He's sent to Verona, where he won't get any special treatment from the 2 gentlemen drafted to guard his cell. Hamlet's father is still dead, and this won't bring him back, but on the other hand, he's also a ghost, and you can talk to him at night. It's a pretty fair verdict, measure for measure. 100 out of 100 legal justice points. So, turns out you scored a possible 100 out of 100 in legal justice points. But unfortunately, you only got like a 3 in adventure points. Man, that's baloney. That's what you get for working within the pre-existing legal system instead of employing unpredictable vigilante adventurism, am I right? The end. Wow. That was shorter than I thought it would be. Now it's time for the Hamlometer! I'm hoping to get a kissable on that one, since there was quite a lot of kissing in it. But I did also opt to stop that, so maybe not. Not to be. Great. Alright, our stats this adventure. Fists bumped, 2. Choices made, 13. More than last time, technically. Times you were, 1. Times you were not, 0. Games of tennis played, 0. I really want to find the one that lets us play tennis, but I feel like that might not actually be real. Rosencrantzes, 1. Guildensterns, 1. Were they in this? I guess they were. Alright, we did it, guys. We created a better story than Shakespeare again. So, yeah. I know that there's supposed to be like an actual outro. I just can't think of one. So, I guess if you like it, subscribe. There's at least one more video I'm going to get out of this. Possibly another live stream where I let anyone watching pick the decisions. I just have to figure out how to get the live stream to line up. We'll see. But for now, that is all. We did it. And our stats still didn't make any sense. Bye-bye!